His uncle made a promise to his parents: school, a future, a better life in the city. What he gave him instead was a cutlass, a hoe, and 4 years of waking before sunrise to walk another man's land. Every morning he stood at the gate and watched his uncle's children leave, backpacks, uniforms, laughter, while the farmer's hat in his hand said everything his voice couldn't. He was not a nephew. He was labor, unpaid, invisible. But his uncle had made one mistake. He had also brought a girl from the village, 17 years old, told the same lie: school, a future, a better life. By the second week, she was on her knees scrubbing floors, while his uncle's wife watched with folded arms. Nobody called it what it was, but everyone in that house knew. 2 prisoners, same roof, same silence. They never spoke about it, not directly, but every evening when the house went quiet, their eyes said what words couldn't. I see you. I know exactly what this is. Then one night she didn't come to dinner, and his uncle walked back inside wearing an expression he had never seen on the man's face, something between guilt and satisfaction. That was the night the boy stopped being afraid. He found her behind the compound by the standpipe, knees in the dirt, hands shaking. She wouldn't look at him. She didn't have to. He crouched beside her and said one word: tonight. They moved like shadows, past the sleeping dogs, past the rusted gate, onto the road with nothing but the clothes on their backs, and 4 years of silent fury between them. By dawn, they were in the city, strangers, hungry, alive, which was more than they had felt in years. He found work at a construction site mixing concrete. She found a tailor who asked no questions and needed steady hands. Slowly, painfully, they built something that looked like a life. But the city had its own kind of cruelty. 3 months in, the site foreman pulled him aside and told him his uncle had called, had spoken to people, had described him as a thief who ran with a girl he had defiled. The story was spreading. Doors that had been open were beginning to close. He came home that evening and she was already sitting at the table, hands folded, eyes dry. She had heard too. We have 2 choices, she said quietly. We run again, or we fight. He looked at her for a long time. Then there was a knock at the door. It was a woman, mid-50s, well-dressed, standing at their doorway like she had rehearsed this moment. She said she was a journalist, said she had been tracking cases like theirs for 2 years, said his uncle was not the only one. There were 11 other children from the same villages, same promises, same fate. She had names, dates, photographs. I need your story, she said, on record, with your face. He wanted to say yes immediately. She touched his arm. If we do this, she said slowly, he will come for us. You know that. He did know. His uncle was not just a farmer. He had connections in that local government, the kind of man who attended church in the front row on Sunday and buried problems quietly on Monday. But the journalist slid a photograph across the table. It was a boy. Couldn't have been older than 12, standing at a gate with a farmer's hat in his hand. His throat tightened. He had never seen the child before in his life, but he recognized the look on the boy's face. He picked up the pen. The story broke on a Friday morning. By afternoon, it had been shared thousands of times. By evening, 2 journalists from national outlets were calling. His uncle's name was everywhere. His church, his local government connections, all of it unraveling in public faster than any of them had expected. He kept his phone off. They stayed inside, waited. On the third day, his uncle's eldest son, the one who had left for school every morning while he stood at the gate, showed up at their door. No driver, no entourage, just a man standing there looking like someone who hadn't slept in days. "My father is finished," he said quietly. "He knows it. I know it." He said nothing. "He wants to apologize." The word landed like a stone in still water. She stepped forward before he could speak. Her voice was calm, absolute, the voice of someone who had decided exactly who she was going to be on the other side of all this pain. "Tell your father," she said, "that we didn't do this for an apology." She looked at the boy who had once stood at a gate with a hat in his hand, now a man who had chosen the hardest, most costly version of justice, and she smiled. "We did it so the next child doesn't have to survive him." The uncle's son nodded slowly, turned to leave. Then he stopped. "There's something else," he said, without turning around. "Something my father did, before you. Something the journalist doesn't know yet. Something that changes everything."